This is me smiling. I am smiling.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Sasha here. I hope you enjoyed our walkthrough of our booth. If that was the first time you were seeing it, or if you're seeing it again, thanks for watching. I am here with the wonderful Walt Williams.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you. And he is actually the lead writer of Spec Ops: The Line.
I am, yes.
So how has your experience been here at
well,
E3?
It's been interesting. I don't get out of the booth much, so every now and then I'm doing interviews and I get to, before we even start, I have them tell me what they've seen because I don't get to see any of this stuff. They keep me here working with the booth and the bus the whole time.
Yes,
but we've
awesome
had a
bus.
fantastic time here. People have been coming up, checking out the game, playing the consumer demo, which is out right now on 360 and PlayStation 3.
Awesome, so
having
download
a really
it
good time.
right after this.
It's just having a great time getting to talk to everyone about the game. You know, we put a lot of hard work, a lot of years and time into this, and it's really, this game ships in 19 days now.
Into a game like this, what's it like being a lead writer?
Oh gosh, lead writer is kind of like having your fingers in every little pie. Like you have the main script that you have to focus on getting the story, but you're going back and forth with designers, the art directors, the level designers, the sound designers, the actors, the animators. You're just constantly having to like look down over everything and make sure all the pieces click together. Because you never want, you find yourself in a situation where maybe it's supposed to be stealthy and then you've got the wrong lines in there and people are screaming at each other because they're reloading. It's a very intricate process, but at the same time, I don't know, it's very exhilarating. Before I did video games, I wrote screenplays, comic books, short stories.
Awesome.
And writing video games is so much more, I don't know, it's kind of fulfilling. Rather than just writing a basic story, it's like finding a world that someone's going to be moving through and interacting with and peeling back the layers, kind of guiding them emotionally from one point to another. It's an amazing process. I absolutely love writing games.
Awesome. So, I mean, with that being said, Spec Ops: The Line, tell me a little bit more about the story about it.
Well, just on the surface, that's the thing. Spec Ops has got a couple of different layers in it, but on the surface, the story of Spec Ops is you are Captain Martin Walker, and you're sent into Dubai with a recon squad looking for survivors 6 months after the city has been ravaged by these cataclysmic sandstorms. Particularly, you're looking for Colonel John Conrad, the leader of the Dam 33rd, a battalion who was sent in to help with the evacuation. Now, what you find in the city is that not only is the city still inhabited, but these people they've turned on each other. They've cut off from the rest of the world. Things have gotten mad and violent, and you don't know what's going on. So rather than leaving the city like you're supposed to, you go further in to try and find Conrad and figure out what's happening, and end up getting caught up in the middle of all of this madness.
So tell me a little bit more about the main characters that are in this madness.
Well, you play as Captain Martin Walker. And Captain Martin Walker he's a long-term Delta. This is a professional soldier. He's been doing Delta operations for a long time. He has a personal relationship with Conrad. It's not a thick one, but years ago, when they were both in Kabul, Conrad saved his life in an operation, and he kind of feels that this is his opportunity to repay that man. Whereas you've got Conrad on the other side. He's almost like a living legend. He's almost like a Patton in our modern time. He's known for his very strategic mind, but also he has a very large humanitarian sense to him. He volunteered his battalion to help with the evac. They were coming out of Afghanistan. This is a man who's trying to do good, even though he may be a soldier, even though he may be someone who spends time in combat and war. He is honestly trying to make a better world. But you're finding that as you get into Dubai and you're seeing what's happened over the past 6 months, that something has happened to Conrad. It's not that he's necessarily gone insane or he's become evil or twisted, but this is a man who's found himself in a horrible situation. And the only way he's found to keep these people alive is to kind of let go of some of those morals and some of those standards and belief that he had to be. He has to be harder to be able to get as many people through this bad time as possible, and it's changed him. And he doesn't like it, but he's having to do it because for him, he sees it as part of the greater good. And you as Walker having to reconcile this with the man that you once knew and the man that the world knows, and see if, can you save the people in Dubai? Even more, can you save Conrad, or has he gone too far?
Right, so it seems like you guys have created some really deep storylines and characters for this game. So, I mean, what makes Spec Ops different from other, military shooters? Because it is very different.
It's all about the narrative. We were setting out to make Spec Ops. We knew we're going to do a third-person, squad-based military shooter. So that was the box that we had to work within. And then we thought, well, what is the game that we want to make? What's the game out there that no one else is making? And so we looked at the modern war shooters that are out there, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. They're very summer blockbusters, spectacular, focused on big global conflict aspects. And we wanted to do a personal story, something that was about the soldiers, about the emotional impact of going through combat. And so rather than going with the big global conflict, we chose a location, something that was a bit neutral, not connected to any past conflicts, and we made it a story about the soldiers. You're not fighting a random terrorist organization, you're fighting American soldiers, soldiers that you actually have gone in to save. And now they believe that you are an outside force that is opposed against them, and they've been so cut off from the world that they've kind of lost their track of what's going on. So you're in the situation where you're trying to save the civilians and find yourself up against the people that you thought were your brothers in arms. And so it's kind of a metaphor for the situation that Walker and his squad finds themselves in, this kind of inner struggle of person versus soldier. And yeah, it's a very interesting dichotomy that we have.
Crazy. It's got like a intricate web of stuff going on. So I mean, who technically are your real enemies in this? Do we know already, or is that something that kind of comes apparent as, like you said, the layers are peeled off in the story?
To say that there's really not a real enemy.
Right.
This is a situation where we've said before, the story of Spec Ops is about what happens to good men when you put them into an increasingly bad situation. Everyone in this game is doing what they think is necessary, what they think has to be done to get the civilians that are still stuck in Dubai out of the city.
Right.
This puts people at odds. This puts different forces against each other, where murder and death is simply a means to an end of survival for the civilians. Everyone thinks they're doing the right thing.
Right.
So to say that there's necessarily a real enemy or the true enemy, in many ways you're the enemy. You're the enemy to the 33rd of what they are trying to do.
Right.
You are coming in, they have, over the past 6 months, they've built a very carefully constructed order into this chaos to keep as many people alive as possible. And now you are opposing them, and you are bringing that down. You are tearing that apart, and everything that they've built is falling all around them. So you're in many ways just as much of a villain as they are.
Got it. Wow. Well, that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to that, because I'm a really big story-based gamer. I played a lot of RPGs growing up, so Spec Ops having a really deep storyline is really exciting to me. I'm really looking forward to that. And I know that during this gameplay, I believe there's choices that a player can make, correct?
There are.
And there's a lot of different ones. So each time you can play it and choose a little bit differently when you go through the game.
We wanted to do a moral choice system in Spec Ops that was different from what gamers were used to. It's not a systemic binary choice. It's the same thing popping up again and again. Hit A for good, B for bad. This one you get a gun, this one you get faction points. And in the end we're going to count it all up and you're going to get the middle ending. Instead we wanted choices that grew organically out of the narrative moment. Something that was key to the situation and the people in that area. It's not, the choices aren't always about the player. This is something in war that we want to grasp, is that the world and the universe does not revolve around you simply because you are in it. These choices are things that are happening to other people that maybe you're the cause of it, maybe you can step into it, try and save them, try and change it, and the consequences, you're not always going to know what they are. You're not even always going to know that you're in a choice. Sometimes they come at you fast in the middle of combat. You don't even realize you've made a decision until moments after, where you see the consequences beginning to unfold in front of you.
Right.
It's very different from what people have seen before, because we're not looking to create a game that's constantly branching around your choices. We wanted to create a branching inside of you.
Got it.
We wanted the things that you have seen, the choices that you have made, to affect you emotionally, so that maybe you're going down the same path that Walker's going down. That the first choice you would make in the game, it's going to be very different from the last choice you would make in the game.
Got it.
And at the end of it, you're going to look back, we're hoping you're going to look back and ask yourself, why did I make these choices? Why did I feel this way? There's a choice in the game where Captain Walker comes across these two men that Colonel Conrad has set up for him. They're hanging from a street sign by their hands. One of them stole water, obviously in Dubai, in a ruined Dubai. Water is a very, very precious commodity.
Yes.
Other people will die because he stole water, even though he did it for his family.
Right.
The other man is a soldier who was sent to apprehend him. And that man is, in his exuberance, he killed the thief's family. Both of these men are guilty, both of these men should die. And Conrad wants you to understand the day-to-day life of what he goes through in Dubai. Now the choice that Walker is given is kill one of these men or the other. Who should be punished?
That is
but
a
the
tough
choice that the
choice.
player is given, which is the unspoken choice, is are you going to do what a video game tells you to do? Are you going to do what you the player wants to do. There are other things that you can do that we're not telling you. There are other actions that you can choose from. All of them are going to play out with their own set of consequences and their own paths within the choice and further on into the game. And this is what we want players to be thinking, not about what is the choice that's going to give me the best ending or the best game, but what is the choice that I, as the player, actually
personally want to do. That's crazy. I like that. I'm really looking forward to that. I know that when you start off the game, you have Walker, and this is on the demo that you can download. There is 2 characters that are with you at the beginning. Who are they?
This is your squad mates. This is Lieutenant Adams and Sergeant Lugo. Lieutenant Adams and Walker, they've been working together for a while. Adams is an old school Delta operator. They have the closest thing to a friendship that you're going to find with Walker, because Walker he's an old school kind of commander. He keeps that distance from the people underneath him. He knows that someday he may have to give them an order that is going to send them to their death, and that they have to see him as a commander rather than a friend. So Adams is really the closest thing to someone that Walker has let into his life. But then you have Lugo. Lugo he's new. He's a rookie. This is his first Delta operation. It was meant to be a very simple recon. Go in, look around, come out. They were hoping to just, let him cut his teeth on something easy. And Adams recommended him. This is a relationship that Walker and Lugo don't really have a relationship. They don't really know each other.
Right.
Lugo's kind of nervous. He's very mouthy at the beginning of the game because
he's pretty funny.
He spouts off a lot because he doesn't really know what he should be doing. But Adams likes Lugo. The two of them, they have a very strong relationship, and Adams kind of sees him as a younger brother a little bit, and is kind of trying to raise him and get him into the groove of being a Delta operator. So you have these different relationships that are spinning around within the squad, and that's something that was very key to bringing the heart into Spec Ops, is making your squad mates feel like real people, not just tools that you can, point to kill.
You really care about them.
Exactly. You want to care about them. You like them. You feel like you're actually on a journey with them. They have their own opinions about what's going on. They go on their own arcs. By the end of the game, they are such completely different people from who they were at the beginning because of the things that they've seen and experienced and had to do.
And are your choices that you make during the game, are they going to really affect those 2 characters very, significantly?
A little bit. The choices are more affecting since they're with you coming into these things, they're going to have their own opinions, and they're going to be upset or happy with you depending on what you do, but ultimately they're still having to follow your orders. So they're going to be as affected by those decisions similarly as you are. They still have to follow you. You are their commander.
Right.
The people in the choices that are mostly affected are the civilians in the 33rd and the people you're coming across when you're in Dubai. But Adams and Lugo, we're really excited for people to get to know these. Lugo in particular, I believe you're quite a fan of Lugo.
I am. He's really funny at the beginning of this demo. He made me laugh a couple times, and I was like, this is kind of a dire situation.
It is. Well, that's the thing, is they don't know that. And we wanted to show that aspect. Sometimes when you think about a soldier in a video game, you think, this is a professional. He's going to, be no nonsense going in. But really, soldiers are, we are all people underneath our jobs. And we wanted to get that across in Spec Ops as they're coming into this game, that these guys are casual, they're friendly, they know each other. They don't think but as soon as that first gun fires, that flips, switches in their brain. All that training kicks in, and then that professionalism, it turns on.
Second nature.
Exactly, and we wanted to really kind of give that realistic interpretation of a soldier.
That's awesome. So, we talked a lot about, the storyline and the characters and everything like that. Let's get into some gameplay.
Okay.
What's the gameplay like in Spec Ops: The Line? What are you going to expect as a player?
Well, with Spec Ops, a little bit you're going to, especially as you get in, you're going to think, this is kind of familiar. We want you to come into the game feeling like, I know this game. I know these controls, I know these characters, I know this story. I am comfortable, because once you're comfortable in Spec Ops, that's when we can really start throwing curveballs at you and you realize this is not the game that I thought it was going to be. One of the great things that we've been able to do, especially with the environment that we use of Dubai, is working with verticality and the sand that has completely overtaken the city.
Sand's a big deal in
this
this
dynamic sand gameplay, it expresses itself in multiple ways. You have the sandstorms that are constantly a threat. You never know when they're going to hit. You have the dynamic sand on the ground. One of my favorite things to do is using a grenade in a sandy area. If I were to throw a grenade at this guy off camera over here, he's standing by, it's going to kill him. But all of the people around him in the sandy area, they may not be in the blast of the grenade, but that sand is going to blow up, and all of these people walking by are going to be dazed by that sand blast. And now I have an opportunity to come in and take out much more people than I could have done simply with a gun or simply with a grenade.
Right, so you can definitely use your environment in this game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you got to keep your eye out. Look for windows, look for air vents and things that maybe feel as if sand, look like sand is piled up behind them. These are weapons you can use to your advantage to turn combat against you. Look for walls and supports that seem to be cracking and leaking sand. Throw a grenade, hit it with a rocket. These are things that are going to explode and be able to turn the tide in your favor in almost any combat.
Right. So, and for those of you who just joined us just recently and wondering what game we're talking about, we're talking about, of course, Spec Ops: The Line.
Spec Ops: The Line.
And I'm with lead writer Walt Williams, who's given me a ton of awesome information so far. What can you tell me about like the challenges you've had writing for a game like this?
The thing with Spec Ops is that no one had really done it before in a military shooter video game. We had to find our inspiration from other sources. A big one being actually survival horror. We looked at survival horror games because when you think about it, war is, if you're actually in combat, it is survival horror. You are inching forward. You are constantly looking for where your threats may be coming from. You may not even see them. It is a very intense, very claustrophobic kind of a situation. And we wanted to bring that into the military shooter genre to more accurately represent what it might be in combat. When you're trying to tell a game like this, a game that is more personal about the soldiers and the people going through it, you have to be very careful not to get exploitive. You don't want it to end up being just grindhouse, shock for shock's sake. You know, there are some very intense scenes in here. When we focus test and we do internal tests of these games, there's scenes where people have to pause the game and leave the room to compose themselves.
Really?
And it's all because these moments are directly tied to the plot and the actions of the character. They are there because they need to be and they logically make sense. As we would come up with ideas for these kind of scenes to really affect players, if it felt like it was there just to shock the player, we threw it out. Because when you're telling a story like this, as soon as you slip once, as soon as you say, I just want you to feel bad just because I think you should, we've lost the audience. We're no longer telling a true emotional story, and we're doing a disservice to them and a disservice to the characters in the game. It's
not fair.
It's not fair.
Not at all. Nope. So what do you really want players to get out of a game like Spec Ops: The Line? I know you said a lot of emotion and
ultimately we just want them to feel.
Characters?
Like, I'm not, there are going to be things in Spec Ops that will possibly make you feel bad. Will probably make you feel uncomfortable and wonder, why am I playing this? Why did they make me do this? And it's not that we're trying to make you feel bad. We want, everyone goes into a game with their own experiences, their own morals, their own beliefs.
Right.
And that's going to color the way you feel about a game, the way you feel about what you're doing. We just want people to feel, because in a military shooter, we feel that there's an interesting thing. We have separated ourselves emotionally from the act of war. We have allowed ourselves to distance ourselves, which is interesting because in a video game, you actually are pulling a trigger on a controller, and your character is pulling a trigger in that game and someone is dying. You may never in your entire life consider picking up a gun and pointing at another human, but we are gotten very comfortable with simulating it, and we wanted to bring the emotion back into this particular genre to really feel and think about what it is that we're doing when we pick up that controller and choose to take on the role of a soldier in a combat situation. And we want people to just, at the end of the game, or whenever, at any point, as they feel something, we want them to ask themselves, why am I feeling this? Why, if I feel upset, if I feel angry, if I feel elated, if I feel excited, what is it about this situation that is making me feel that? Because really, when you look at the subtitle for The Line, a lot of people ask, well, what is it about? Is there a line you have to cross? But really, it's about the line of who we think we are and who we actually are. It's our beliefs and our reality, particularly when we sit down to play a game, who do we think we are and who are we actually? Because Spec Ops is a war game, obviously, but really, it's a game about us as gamers and as creators and how we choose to interact with our game worlds and why we choose the worlds that we do. Right.
So how do you think players are going to react to this emotional challenge, especially those who probably never experienced that before in any sort of military shooter?
I think people are going to embrace it. I think people are going to be surprised. This is a kind of game that I don't know that I think people are ready for it. You look at the kind of games that are being revealed at E3 this week and the games that have been coming out in the past, people are ready for a broader emotional experience. We've been saying for years that video games are art, but our art has to affect us. It cannot simply be a hero fantasy. It cannot simply be, I am the center of the universe and I have saved the day. When you think about film, books, music, we spend so much money buying sad songs and scary movies. We use our art to safely explore our emotions, to feel things that we maybe would not want to feel in our day-to-day lives. Video games is the only medium that is interactive, the only one that we can literally step into the shoes of someone else and experience something that we may never experience on our own day-to-day lives. And it's time that as a medium we broaden that out to maybe make games that aren't necessarily comfortable with us, that maybe don't have the happiest of endings, because this might be the medium that really allows us as a culture and as a species to become more sympathetic and more emphatic towards each other, to understand more what it means to be someone else. And really at the end of Spec Ops, that's what we're hoping people will think back, kind of think more about themselves and think about other people as well.
That's great. It's like reading, like you said, just reiterating, just like reading a good book or watching a good movie. Like you're going to feel it afterwards and want to talk to people about it.
Exactly. And we think that everyone's going to have a different experience with this game. At the end, they're going to feel differently about Walker, about Conrad, about the squad, and about themselves. And we're really excited to see that conversation get started.
I'd like that too. I think I'd be talking about that too. It's just, I'm really looking forward to this game. I really can't say enough. And not only is there a single player mode, there's a couple other modes as well. I know there's a multiplayer
There is.
mode.
We do have a competitive multiplayer mode, but we also just announced that there's going to be a co-op mode. That is going. It's not this co-op story. The story was, we designed early on that the single player story needed to be very personal, and we felt that when you're playing co-op, the narrative of a co-op is really the narrative you're creating with your friend, the interaction you're having with the people you're playing with. And so we decided to do a separate co-op mode that is just going to be a two-player co-op that focuses more on the strengths of the gameplay, being able to work together to overcome obstacles, and that's going to be released for download a little bit after the game ships for free for anyone who's purchased the game.
Very nice.
And then, of course, we have the competitive co-op mode with all the various modes and things I believe there's a lot of stuff out there about the multiplayer. Me being the single-player writer, obviously, I have a little less knowledge on that, but I can tell you it's there and it's fantastic.
Awesome. Well, if you're right, does the co-op mode, does that tie into the story at all? I know you said it does a little bit. Does it happen before,
the
after,
competitive multiplayer
during?
mode does tie into the story. There is, without spoiling the story too much, there is an event that has happened between the 33rd soldiers prior to the beginning of the single-player campaign, and the competitive multiplayer mode is a dramatization of that. But again, don't want to spoil anything, especially with 19 days out. It's so close. I'd hate to tell you everything when, frankly, you can experience it for yourself very
Absolutely.
soon. So.
Right. Well, with that being said, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff, and now I want to ask you some stuff, like your own personal opinions.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite character?
Do I have a favorite? That's
yes. Without giving too much away, because I'm sure you know the whole story as you wrote it.
I do have a favorite character.
You do.
Conrad in particular.
Do you?
Conrad and Walker are probably. Oh gosh, it's hard. I like them all. I mean, they're all my characters, and they've all the actors brought such life to them. Like really, it's almost even. I can't even say they're my characters anymore. They belong to the actors. But Conrad in particular, I always found very interesting because we designed. One of the things we want to do was design the game from the mindset of Conrad. If we were in command of the 33rd and we were trying to pull the player towards us, we wanted them to come to us. What are the obstacles that we would order our soldiers to put in the player's way? How would we set things up to draw the player in further until like he can't escape from us? And so it was very interesting to get inside of Conrad's head, not just from a narrative standpoint, but also from a design standpoint. Walker, though, on the other hand, I really like Walker because Walker has a lot of layers to it, and you don't really know everything about him. He's not going to tell you his past. You don't know if he's married. You don't know if he has kids or a dog or anything at home. This is a soldier. Like, you and I, we work together, but we know very little about each other. We have that kind of work relationship that, we're friends, but outside of, there's not necessarily that we would talk. And it's like that with Walker. You are a work relationship with him, and he keeps a lot of those things separate from you and from the squad, but at the same time, we have these types of intel items in the game. You have two types. One is the basic backstory, but the other is an item that Walker will pick up, and when you look at it, you will get Walker's thoughts on that item at that moment in the game. And so you're getting into his head, hearing the things that he would not ever express out loud to someone. And so Walker has a lot of hidden depth that you really have to look throughout the world and find those items to get more of that insightfulness, because we wanted him to really feel like an authentic commander, someone who's going to have that emotional distance to him. So I would say Walker and Conrad, the back and forth between those two characters.
One of the two.
Yeah.
Of course, for sure. And I mean, I know we talked a little bit earlier about you yourself being a writer, but how did you become a writer? Like for those of, people watching at home or people who want to get into the gaming industry, really love writing also.
Well,
how did you become a writer?
The trick to becoming a writer is just to write nonstop. Write anything. Write short stories, write comic strips, write movie strips, write video game strips, and never stop. Eventually, if you can, basically, you sit down to write the first draft of any long form script.
Yes.
If you complete that, you're ahead of like 95% of the people. Most people who sit down to want to become a writer never finish that first thing. And once you get through that, once you hold in your hands a completed draft of something, you know, okay, I can do this again. I can write something longer. And it's in a lot of ways, writing is like working out. You have to build up your muscles and your strength to keep doing it.
Of course.
So I was writing, before I got into video games, I was writing all the time, doing freelance screenwriting, short stories and things for magazines.
Right.
And then I moved up to New York and I joined 2K actually as a production assistant.
Ah,
but working more on the narrative and design side. So I would go work with developers, help them flesh out and edit their scripts, and integrate the stories more into the gameplay. And
Got it.
I've been with 2K for about 7 years now.
Wow.
So really, I worked my way up from being narrative production assistant to being lead writer.
There you go.
Which is one of the ways to do it. Absolutely one of the ways to do it. You know, there's nothing wrong with hard work. Definitely nothing wrong with paying. If you're going to be a writer, you're going to have to pay your dues eventually. And the thing that I certainly learned coming in as a video game writer is that you think you know everything. Most writers do.
Right.
You absolutely do not. You know nothing. And paying your dues and working your way up is necessary. You need to see and learn about design and how because every development studio has their own different way. They work very differently. And you just need to learn to sit back and observe and watch and pick up on the small things, and you're going to get better the more you write. It's
Absolutely.
just a constant revision cycle. Yeah, it's just, honestly, it's not the most exciting answer, but you become a writer by
But that's how you do it. Lots
hard
of hard
work.
work,
Yeah, lots of hard
determination,
work, yeah.
all of that good stuff. I mean, also you talk about just constantly writing and everything and all of that, and you have to think, I mean, I think your job is incredible because not only have you written this, I mean, you've written stuff before, so how did you get the inspiration for writing the story of Spec Ops: The Line?
Well, it was a couple inspirations. I mean, you have artistic inspiration of other sources that, like, for instance, Generation Kill, the HBO miniseries. That was a big inspiration in getting the tone of the squad right. We really wanted them to have a very organic dynamic, and Generation Kill was a big inspiration on that. But really, for Spec Ops, the more inspiration was to come in and tell. Well, I think, at the beginning of any creative endeavor, you ask yourself two questions. If this is the only thing I'm ever going to make, what do I want to leave behind? What do I want it to be? What do I want to be the only thing?
This is your legacy.
Exactly. And the other question is, what is out there that I want to be playing or reading or viewing that no one else is making? Because those are the things, when you make that, you've made something entirely original, something that no one else can make. You are putting your own voice and vision out into the world, and that's a special thing. And with Spec Ops, the inspiration was to tell a story that was very personal, to tell a story to take a genre that people had kind of emotionally disconnected with, and to make them feel and think about it. It's a challenge. You know, in a lot of ways, it's risky too. We're not gonna know, we feel we've been successful, but we're not gonna know for certain for another 19 days until this game is actually in the hands of gamers and they are able to respond and tell us, did we pull it off? Some people will think we did, some people will think we didn't, and that's fine. Everything is up to interpretation and opinion. So
Absolutely.
wanting to take on the challenge of making a military shooter that really we felt no one else had tried to make yet, that was the biggest inspiration. Because if you're going to spend so many years and so much time and effort on something, it needs to be worthwhile. It needs to be worth your while. It needs to be something unique in some way, bringing something new into the world that people aren't expecting. And with Spec Ops, that was our inspiration, what we set out to do.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I really can't express enough how much I'm really looking forward to this game. It drops June 26th, correct?
Yes, on 360, PlayStation 3, and PC.
There we go. And also,
the demo is out now, so again,
is.
download it.
Xbox Live, PS3,
yes,
PlayStation Network. And how have you been enjoying E3 so far?
It's been good. Honestly, it's been a fantastic time. It's day 3. I'm exhausted. The amount of energy I'm showing right now is not the amount of energy I'm feeling at all. We were talking backstage, I think I've been legally dead for about 3 hours actually. So
I'm right behind you, maybe 2 for me.
But other than that, it's been fantastic. Honestly, there's so many.
The people here are amazing.
The people are amazing, and you get to see so many people from other companies, and you get to see what everyone's been cooking up in their heads and are finally ready to put out there. And I don't know. I always find E3 to be very inspiring. Because you really get, I see video games, as a medium, we're all kind of building on each other. It's not, I know we have a tendency to kind of bash each other a little bit playfully, but a game like Spec Ops would not be possible without all of the games that had come before it. And that's with all games. We're constantly learning from each other. And that's why games are continuing to get better, more narratively driven, more emotional, deeper. And it's fantastic to see what everyone else is working on, because now you're like, okay, that kind of, I want to try this. I think I can do this now based off of what you've shown me. And I don't know, I really like that.
That's awesome. I mean, me too. I mean, it's been a great experience so far, and I love it. Everything here has been great. And we just talked, if you just tuned in, I'm talking with Walt Williams, our lead writer of Spec Ops: The Line. We've been talking about it here for the last about 30 minutes or so. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. We're actually going to show you guys at home the trailer for Spec Ops: The Line, so you can kind of see graphically what we've been talking about. And then we're also going to, from there, we're going to join some live co-op that's been in progress. We were talking about the co-op just a little bit before, and that's a feature that we just, live co-op that we had recorded yesterday. If you missed it, here it is again for you. As well as, and I guess that's it. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for talking.
Absolutely.
So, and thanks for watching.